Dr. Althea Grant had just finalized the budget for the new wing at Northwood Pediatric Center. The afternoon sun in Heritage Park was her reward. It was a brief, silent moment of peace. That peace was shattered by the crunch of tires on gravel. A patrol car slid into the lot. A second one followed, blocking the only exit. She looked up, expecting a simple nod. Instead, two officers emerged, their strides full of intent. Officer Corrigan, the taller of the two, had a look that stripped you down and found you wanting. His partner, Calloway, hung back slightly, hand resting near his weapon. "Afternoon," Corrigan said, his voice hard and flat. "Is there a problem, officers?" Althea's tone was calm, betraying none of the sudden tension. Corrigan ignored her question, his eyes scanning her expensive clothes, her leather bag. "What exactly are you doing here?" "I'm taking a break after a board meeting," she said, her posture straightening. "Before I drive home." "Home is around here?" Calloway chimed in, his gaze flicking to the luxury homes bordering the park. The question hung in the air, thick with insinuation. "About 20 minutes from here," she replied evenly. "Why do you ask?" Corrigan took a step closer, invading her space. "We got a call. A resident reported suspicious activity." He let the words sink in. "Said someone was casing the neighborhood." "You fit the description." Althea glanced around the empty park. "A woman on a bench is a threat?" she thought. Out loud, she said, "I am breaking no laws, officer." A smirk touched Corrigan's lips. "That's for us to decide. Let's see some identification." She nodded, moving her hand slowly toward her purse. "Of course. It's right in my—" "Freeze!" Corrigan's voice was a whip crack. "Hands where I can see them. Now!" Althea's hand stopped, hovering in the air. The park, once peaceful, now felt like a cage. "I was getting my wallet, officer." "Just stand up, nice and slow." "For what reason?" The question was quiet, but it held the force of a woman used to being heard. "Ma'am, stand up." She rose with practiced control, hands held out, palms open. It was a posture learned not in a class, but from a lifetime of experience. Corrigan gestured for her to turn around. As she did, she saw onlookers, a jogger slowing his pace, a mother pulling her child away. Her tablet and bag sat abandoned on the bench, evidence of a life interrupted. "You're not under arrest," Corrigan grunted from behind her. "You're just being detained until we sort this out." "Sort what out?" she asked, disbelief coloring her voice. The only answer was the cold, sharp click of a handcuff ratcheting shut around her wrist. Then the second one. The steel was brutal against her skin. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice was a rock. "Officers, you are making a profound mistake. There is no reason for this." "You were acting suspiciously," Calloway muttered. "That's reason enough." Althea turned her head, her eyes locking onto his. "My business is my own. In what world is that suspicious?" Corrigan's silence was the only answer she received. Taking a slow, centering breath, Althea made a simple request. "I need to make a phone call." The two officers exchanged a look. Corrigan shrugged. "Fine, but it's on speaker." With her hands cuffed behind her, she awkwardly retrieved her phone. A voice command, a single name. It rang only once. "Althea!" The voice on the other end was deep, calm, and instantly alert. Her own composure wavered for just a fraction of a second. "Jax, talk to me. Where are you?" "Heritage Park," she said, her voice steadying. "I've been detained. Someone reported me as a suspicious person." A beat of silence, then, "Are you injured?" "No, just humiliated." She saw the officers shift, a flicker of unease in their body language. "I'm on my way," he said, his tone shifting, hardening into something else entirely. "Put your phone on speaker." Althea looked at Corrigan. "He wants to speak with you." The officer gave a dismissive nod. The voice that boomed from the phone's small speaker was coded in ice and authority. "This is General Jackson Reed, United States Army. You are currently detaining my wife without cause or justification." Corrigan and Calloway froze. Their casual arrogance vanished, replaced by stark disbelief. "This call is being recorded for a judge advocate. I am 10 minutes out. You will remove the handcuffs from my wife. You will not speak to her. You will not move her. You will wait for my arrival." The line went dead. A thick, panicked silence descended. Officer Corrigan, who had been the picture of smug control seconds before, swallowed hard. His professional composure had completely evaporated. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Calloway finally stammered, his eyes wide with terror. "Why didn't you say who you were married to?" Althea stared back at him, her expression a mixture of pity and contempt. "Officer," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. Why should that have made a difference? Neither man had an answer. There wasn't one. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Corrigan paced like a caged animal while Calloway fumbled with his radio, muttering about a situation update. The authority they wore so proudly had been stripped away by a single phone call. But they weren't the only ones watching. The jogger who had passed earlier was now filming from across the lawn. A teenage girl, phone held high, approached Althea cautiously. "Ma'am, are you okay? What did you do?" Althea met the girl's eyes and answered with devastating simplicity. "I sat on that bench." The girl's jaw dropped. "That's it? They cuffed you for sitting?" She spun on the officers. "Are you serious?" "She's being detained pending investigation," Calloway snapped, his voice cracking. "Detained," the girl scoffed, turning her camera's lens directly on them. "Yeah, right. Hey everyone, Maple Creek PD is cuffing women for sitting in the park now. Real brave." Just then, a third cruiser screeched to a halt. A stocky, gray-haired Lieutenant Wallace got out, his face a thundercloud. He took in the scene, the cuffed doctor, his two terrified officers, and the growing audience of citizens with phones recording every second. "Corrigan, what in God's name is this?" Wallace barked, walking straight toward him. "Sir, we had a 911 call. Suspicious person? Match the description." "What description?" Wallace's voice was like grinding gravel. "Black female, on a bench, just watching the area." Wallace's eyes moved to Dr. Grant. He saw her elegant suit, her unwavering posture, the raw steel on her wrists, and the fire in her eyes. "And that required cuffs?" "She was reaching for her bag, Lieutenant. It's procedure." Wallace stepped so close his badge was inches from Corrigan's face. "Did she threaten you?" "No, but did she refuse your orders?" "Well, no." "Did she so much as raise her voice?" "No, sir." "Then get those cuffs off of her," Wallace commanded, his voice a low, lethal hiss. "Right now." With trembling fingers, Corrigan unlocked the handcuffs. Althea slowly rubbed the raw, red marks on her wrists, her gaze never leaving his. She didn't have to say a word. Just then, a black Cadillac Escalade, silent and imposing, pulled up to the curb. The driver's door opened, and the world seemed to stop. General Jackson "Jax" Reed emerged. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a jaw that looked like it could cut diamond. He wore his full-dress uniform, and the 4 silver stars on each shoulder glittered like angry constellations. He moved with a deliberate, unstoppable purpose that parted the air in front of him. The onlookers fell silent. The jogger stopped filming. This wasn't just a husband arriving. This was the full weight of the United States military walking across the grass. He stopped directly in front of Althea, his eyes softening only for her. "You okay?" "I am now," she said softly. His gaze dropped to her wrists. The red marks screamed against her skin. "They put you in cuffs?" She simply nodded. He turned and the warmth vanished from his face, replaced by a glacial fury. His eyes found Lieutenant Wallace. "Who's in command here?" "That would be me, sir," Wallace said, his professionalism a thin shield. "I want it all," the general stated, his voice calm but absolute. "Body cam footage, the 911 dispatch logs, the audio of the initial call. My judge-advocate liaison will be in contact within the hour." "Understood, sir." Corrigan and Calloway stood frozen, their faces pale. General Reed retrieved his wife's bag and tablet from the bench. He handed them to her, his touch a silent reassurance. Then he turned back to the 2 officers, his voice cutting through the park's silence. "My wife is a respected doctor, a community leader, but today all that mattered was that her presence made someone uncomfortable. You didn't see a citizen, you saw a threat." He let the accusation hang in the air. "Make no mistake, if I wasn't a general, she would be in the back of your car right now. That isn't a failure of procedure, it's a failure of character." He stared directly at Corrigan. "You should be ashamed." "Sir, this incident will be taken very seriously," Wallace insisted. The general shook his head. "Serious doesn't fix this. This was about decency, judgment, You either have it or you don't. He turned to Althea. Let's go home. As they walked to the Escalade, every phone recorded their path. Before getting in, General Reed paused and turned, his voice carrying across the entire park. To the person in the white BMW X5 who made that call, he said, his eyes scanning the manicured lawns of the nearby houses. I hope you're watching, because you're about to become very famous. The Escalade pulled away, leaving a tableau of chaos and career-ending silence in its wake. The story was already a firestorm online. The teenager's video, now titled Cops Cuff Doctor, then her 4-star general husband shows up, was rocketing across the internet. Hashtags were already trending. Raver Justice for DeGrant, and the one that was about to go viral, Narcs General Checkmate. Inside the quiet luxury of the truck, Althea finally let out a long, shuddering breath, rubbing her wrists. The red marks were already starting to bruise. I wasn't scared, she said, her voice barely a whisper. First, I was just furious. Then I was embarrassed. She shook her head. Now, Jax? Now I'm just tired. He reached over and took her hand, his grip firm and steady. I know, Althea, he said, his eyes on the road. You don't have to say another word. Her phone was a testament to the firestorm they had unleashed. It hadn't stopped buzzing, a relentless flood of notifications from news alerts, encrypted group chats with other military spouses, and a text from a board member at the pediatric center that just said, "The world is watching. Give them hell." It was more than a video now. It was a symbol. On every cable news channel, the scene played on a loop. The arrogant shrug of the cop, the glint of steel on a black woman's wrists, and the sudden, breathtaking arrival of power and consequence. A legal analyst shook his head on screen. This isn't just about one bad traffic stop, he said. It's about who holds the power of assumption, and what happens when that assumption is dead wrong. The hashtags Chusher Justice for Dr. Grant and Chush General Checkmate were not just trending. They were dominating the national conversation. Her phone rang. It was the PR director for Northwood Pediatric. Althea, we are behind you, 100%. The board wants to issue a statement. Althea thought of every woman who looks like her, who has faced a man like Corrigan without a 4-star general on speed dial. Not yet, she said, her voice steel. When I speak, it won't be just for me. The next day, Lieutenant Wallace held a press conference. Sweating under the hot lights, he stumbled through a hollow, pre-approved script about a full internal review and the officers being placed on administrative leave. It was the empty, bureaucratic language of damage control, and no one was buying it, especially not the general. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, he held his own press conference. There was no podium, no official seal, just the front lawn of their home, Althea at his side, and a wall of cameras. He didn't need a script. My wife is a doctor. She sat on a park bench to enjoy the sun, General Reed began, his voice calm, clear, and caring. She broke no law. She threatened no one. She was handcuffed because a person in a BMW decided she didn't belong there. That is the beginning, the middle, and the end of this story. He paused, looking at Althea, then back at the sea of microphones. The only reason those cuffs came off is because of the 4 stars on my shoulder. That isn't justice. That's privilege. The system didn't protect my wife. I did. And I shouldn't have had to. The reporters were utterly silent. So let me be perfectly clear, he added, his voice hardening. We are not interested in a closed-door apology. We will not be suing this city for a single dollar. We demand accountability. We demand the immediate termination of the officers involved. And we demand a training protocol that isn't just a checkbox on a form. Then Althea took one step forward. The cameras swarmed to her. I have built a life in this community, she said, her voice steady and powerful. I run a pediatric center. I pay my taxes. I am a wife and a mother. But when I sat on that bench, none of that mattered. In their eyes, I wasn't any of those things. I was just a problem that needed to be removed. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The truth was loud enough. The consequences were swift and absolute. The mayor's office called, requesting a private meeting. The general's reply was 5 words. Dr. Grant has already spoken. The real reckoning happened the next morning, inside the cold, quiet walls of the Maple Creek police station. Officer Corrigan walked into Lieutenant Wallace's office with a defiant swagger, expecting a slap on the wrist. Wallace didn't ask him to sit. The internal review is over, Corrigan. The General's office has provided my chief with a federal complaint. Obstruction of civil liberties. Wallace slid a single piece of paper across his desk. This is your resignation. You can sign it, or you can take your chances in federal court. Your choice. Corrigan's arrogance finally shattered. The color drained from his face. He stared at the paper, then at the man he had once seen as a protector. There was no protection left. Wordlessly, he picked up the pen. Your badge and weapon, too, Wallace said, his voice devoid of sympathy. On the desk. Now, with a shaking hand, Corrigan unclipped his badge and slid it across the desk. The sound of the metal scraping against the wood was loud in the silent room. Then came his service weapon, heavy and final. Stripped of his power, he was just a man in a cheap uniform, his career over. His partner Calloway was permanently reassigned to the evidence locker, a career buried under boxes of cold cases and forgotten files. And the anonymous caller in the white BMW X5? Their identity was leaked online within hours. They were now the most infamous resident in Maple Creek, their home a landmark for public scorn. The city council promised reform. But for the two disgraced officers and the fearful resident who started it all, the verdict was already in. It hadn't been delivered by a court of law. It had been delivered by a family that refused to be broken.